Hello there, Commonwealth from here, and we have finished all the regular dungeons that are in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. But since this is a remake, it's obvious that there needs to be something more than just the same temples, even if there are some slight changes here and there. But as you make your way from the Spirit Temple, or for some reason from the Shadow Temple, you get back to the Temple of Time. You get the light arrows, and those light arrows are meant for the final battles. But what if, and I'm just saying what if, the one medallion without a temple finally gets a temple? Because there are two ways Nintendo could really do this. Right after you pull the Master Sword, kind of adult Link tutorial, which, let's be honest, would be a waste of this potential. Because the Light Temple could truly become the new best Zelda dungeon, not only in Ocarina of Time, but maybe even of all time.
Especially if it's a feature or like an addition that they don't advertise ahead of time. Of course, with the internet, would probably get spoiled like on day 2 of this game coming out, but it would still be a really cool like surprise per se. I do picture the one from Twilight Princess, the Temple of Time really. It would certainly make this remake feel like it's a more definitive version of Ocarina of Time. Maybe not a replacement per se, because I feel like the point of most video game remakes shouldn't always be to replace the original, but offer like something different, something new and fresh, while still having that original to go back to at times. But if they did add the Light Temple, especially at this point, this late in the game, that would be really cool.
Would be like the crowning achievement really before you get to the real climax of the game. You already have great temples. You have the Forest Temple, you have the Spirit Temple that we just went over, where you play both as a child and adult. We could also see child and adult for the Light Temple by, restoring the Master Sword, and that's starting the first section and then pulling it again and doing the final section as adult Link. But it's already been used for the Spirit Temple. So personally, I feel like you should be doing this all as adult Link. It happens right after, Zelda has revealed herself and been kidnapped by Ganondorf, but you can't make your way into because you don't have the Light Medallion. The big twist here would be you haven't received it yet, because Rauru simply wouldn't hand it to you in that scene. Let's be honest, the Light Medallion doesn't do much outside of being that medallion that also allows you to enter Ganon's castle. But in this way, it would actually be another thing to get to show truly your worth to Rauru himself. This should just go whole Stone Tower Temple on this. The problem with Twilight Princess's Temple of Time is that it's so linear. In many ways, its structure reminds me of the Shadow Temple, with a quite disappointing boss. There should be some modern aspects. I also could bring up Skykeep from Skyward Sword, or even the Tower of Gods in the Wind Waker. I think this temple could be like the culmination of all of those. Simply become the best Zelda dungeon of all time. Combine all the items, all the elements that Link has, including the light arrows.
Cathedral, almost like modeled after what Hyrule Castle would look like if it wasn't, invaded by Ganondorf. An additional challenge in the Temple of Light would just be the icing on the cake. And, if we don't get that light medallion at the very beginning when Link turns into an adult, then that goes to show, oh, we're doing this. We're really doing this right now, Nintendo. This is how exciting.
It was a cut temple. We know there are files here pointing to that this was a planned temple at some point, and bringing it back is in many ways also completing what Eiji Aonuma, who was the dungeon designer, he actually started out his journey in the Zelda franchise as the dungeon designer for Ocarina of Time. We know this after receiving an award, he stated that. It would be amazing if he actually used those old dungeon elements to simply create the best dungeon he possibly could. Because we know the Stone Tower Temple in the game that follows this, Majora's Mask, is absolutely incredible. But I think there's potential of even outdoing that. And if they can show that they in the modern age are able to pull that off, that would bring a lot of confidence also when it comes to what kind of dungeons we could see in the next open-air The Legend of Zelda game.
I gotta wonder, will this be a more open type of Zelda dungeon, this Temple of Light? What kind of concerns me about that is it might be jarring in comparison to rest of the dungeons in the game, assuming they don't change much, right? But if it's jarring like in a good way, like it's so much better, and then we're capping off the game with this right before we head to Ganondorf's castle, this cut dungeon, which you gotta imagine, they're not just gonna dig up the old blueprints from the 90s, they're gonna make some significant changes.
Yeah, because that one was already topped by the Stone Tower Temple, and we know that the Light Temple in Twilight Princess was nowhere near as good as what we want this place to be. The great advantage about this temple is you are entering with all the items. You have the long shot, you have the mirror shield, you have the light arrows, even the fire and ice arrows. Here is where you could use all of it and take advantage by giving us puzzles and elements. Like, this is also why the Stone Tower Temple is so great, is that it really tests you in all kind of elements. Ganon's castle, it's never going to become a Stone Tower Temple, while here you have the chance of actual go bonkers and give us a dungeon that isn't too tedious, but is just fun, rewarding, and also challenging. If everything else in this game is autopilot, because many of those who will be buying this game have already played Ocarina of Time in the past, then at least if you have the Light Temple, you will get that final challenge before going up to Ganon, and that would also make the remake worth it in the end.
I do have a question, because we've been talking about this Temple of Light for a long time, even before Nate the Hate essentially confirmed that this remake was real. How would we feel if this didn't happen, though? How would we feel if there was no additional dungeon and the game was just business as usual? I still expect there are going to be some changes with how the game's designed, but assuming the Light Temple never gets added, how would we feel about that, Conrad?
It's really a missed opportunity, really. Why are you returning back to Ocarina of Time then? Are you just going to do Ocarina of Time 3D again? That's pretty much what you end up with. And yeah, if it is $60, that's pretty much what we're likely to end up with. Just a visual overhaul, mechanical improvements, and maybe something done in the structure of Castletown and so on. But having just the same layout as you've had for every remaster up to this point, I feel like that would just be a wasted opportunity. This is the final opportunity to, return to this game and bring it to another level and make that game again the best rated game ever. And I think without adding those, reviewers are not going to be lenient on it. We're already seeing what happened after Star Fox. Ocarina of Time is a very different beast. There are expectations. And we know that in the case of Link's Awakening, when they returned for the DX version, they added a new dungeon. You have historic precedent here to add a new dungeon as well. I don't think we're gonna get multiple new dungeons. I think if we're gonna get anything new, it has to be something that is logical and really completes Ocarina of Time, because you get that dungeon that represents that medallion that doesn't have a dungeon. That makes sense. Unlike, say, the also rumored to be cut wind and ice temples, because those, again, they don't have any purpose really, because we have the ice cavern, we have the water temple, we have the wind puzzles within the shadow temple, and of course we have the forest temple. So if anything, it is just to make the game ultimate, complete, so that you never have to return back to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be overtly disappointed if the Temple of Light was not in this game, but you do make a good point that there has been historical precedence with the color dungeon from Link's Awakening DX. I just hope they don't say and we're adding a new dungeon. Remember Cave of Shadows from Twilight Princess HD? Well, here's the sequel. Now I'm just making up scenarios to get mad at. It's probably not going to happen. We are getting so close to the end of 2026. I can't wait to see this.
Exactly, and the way I think of it is that the amiibo, if they have one for Ocarina of Time Remake, because after the leak, it doesn't seem like we're getting a themed system for Ocarina of Time. It's about the Zelda 40th anniversary, and it was that in the first place when we think about it. But I would really love to see Child Link pulling the Master Sword, and that could also be kind of tying to, the Light Temple, because it is tied to the Temple of Time. It's tied to the Master Sword. I just want to see them take full advantage of this place, because yes, you have the dungeon of Ganon's castle already, but the Temple of Time doesn't have any dungeon, and I would really want to see them just take full advantage of this iconic location. Yes, there are a satisfying amount of dungeons already in Ocarina of Time. You have already 8, not counting the final dungeon, so you have 9 in total, but getting a perfect round 10, that would be so good, Joey.
I would agree. I love me a good even number. I have a feeling that we'll probably find out if this dungeon is getting added before the game comes out.
Obviously it's gonna leak before release. These kind of people will never allow this to stay a secret to everybody, but I can promise straight out. If it's not a part of the marketing campaign, there's no way we are going to spoil to you the presence of a light temple. This has to be a surprise. I know people want dungeons to be completely overhauled, like make them completely new again. That's not going to happen. You're asking for a completely new game. Here, at least, there's a way of meeting some of that demand. And by doing that, you create that balance, that perfect balance before going to the obvious final dungeon, which is Ganon's Tower. And it is also the thing that we will be going over in the final regular dungeon episode of Inside Ocarina of Time Remake. What do you really think about this whole thing about the Light Temple? Do you think that Eiji Aonuma will complete his journey with Ocarina of Time after starting it as a dungeon designer in this original N64 game by bringing that missing temple in the final version of the game? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, and last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.